A man named Eric Jackson just exposed Jay-Z in 4K for scamming a bunch of artists. Do y'all remember this day right here when Jay-Z convinced a bunch of big artists like J. Cole, Nicki Minaj, Kanye West, Rihanna, and others to turn down exclusive streaming deals from other streaming platforms that would have paid them tens of millions of dollars to sign exclusive deals with Tidal that will pay them nothing, but they will have equity in Tidal. Y'all remember this day? Well, apparently this day was a huge scam because these artists ain't benefit a dime.
Everyone remembers the headline. Jack Dorsey bought Jay-Z's Tidal for $297 million. Beyonce, Rihanna, Kanye, Nicki, all co-owners, all getting paid. And here's what the SEC filing says the buyer actually paid. $233 million for 86.8% of the company. Which means the whole thing, the platform 16 superstars stood on stage to launch, was actually worth $269 million that day, which was less than half of what it was worth 4 years before. Nicki Minaj says she was offered $1 million to go away. Steve Stout said she left millions on the table because she never signed her paperwork. And for 10 years, everyone has been arguing about who got scammed and who's been doing it without they've been doing this without opening one set of documents that would show the actual results, the filings. So this story is actually stranger than anything you've already heard about it. And I went and read the filings.
You know what's super shady in how they dealt with Nicki Minaj? They knew all along. So they told Nicki Minaj because, again, all the other artists, they have taken their L. They not pushing the issue because they still, for the most part, got respect or they are scared of Jay-Z, so they're not really pushing the issue. Nicki Minaj has been pushing the issue. Nicki Minaj has been on Twitter, has been online calling out Jay-Z and Tidal and Roc Nation for scamming her for years, right? So all the other artists, they got finagled. Kanye West actually left Tidal early because Tidal owed him money and he said he was never gonna get the money, so he just left. But if they knew Nicki Minaj never signed the paperwork, because Nicki Minaj thought she signed it. She thought what she signed on stage was the paperwork, but apparently, no, it wasn't, right? It was a sleight of hand. What they signed on stage was apparently like a declaration of they were gonna sign. So if they knew that Nicki Minaj never signed and a quote-unquote deal was never solidified, then why did they continue to receive all the exclusives that Nicki Minaj gave them? That's the snake part. If they knew Nicki Minaj never quote-unquote signed, Nicki Minaj still honored her end of the agreement and still gave them the exclusive albums as if she did sign. And they ain't turn it down. They ain't say, hold on, Nicki, you never signed this contract, so we can't get the exclusivity from your album. No, they still took they still took the exclusivity. Like, Nicki Minaj still brought her audience over the Tidal. And that's where it's shady. And that's where it's kind of scummy. Because if you're saying the deal was not solidified, we don't owe you nothing, then you should have told her, hey, you didn't sign, Nicki. We can't take the exclusive. But they still took it. They still took her audience. And they still benefited from it. While at the same time preparing for a day like this, when the bill was going to be due to eventually pay Nicki Minaj, they could always say, nope, sorry, you didn't sign. This is sketchy.
This is day 341. There were 3 SEC filings, 1 federal court motion, and the principal's own posts. And everything that I'm about to talk about on this video is all public record knowledge. March 30th, 2015, the famous stage, there were 16 artists standing shoulder to shoulder as owners. Beyonce, Rihanna, Kanye, Madonna, Nicki, J. Cole, Jack White, Daft Punk, the list goes on. The reporting that week, and it traces back to one Billboard story, said that each act was gifted about 3% of Tidal in exchange for pledging exclusive content. Now look at the sourcing there. One outlet, launch week, unnamed sources, no principal, no document has ever confirmed that there was 3% given to the artists. The thing that they signed on stage, which has been published, is a declaration. And I've read it, it's a manifesto, not an equity contract. Whatever equity paper existed behind it has never been public. So there were 10 years of arguments, and the foundational document of the argument has never been seen. Then in 2017, January of 2017, Sprint bought 33% of Tidal for $200 million. That's a real reported transaction, and it did 2 things. It priced the whole company around $600 million, which was the high watermark for it, and it diluted everybody. So if you had a 3% stake, if it existed as reported, it became roughly 2% after that investment. Nobody renegotiated the legend though. The legend stayed that, quote, the artists owned 3%. Now the part that you came for, in March of 2021, Square, which is Jack Dorsey's company, it's now called Block, it announced it was buying the majority of Tidal, and the press release said for $297 million. Every headline said that. Some said $302 million. And then a year later, Block filed its annual report with the SEC, which is the 10K, and the accountants don't do vibes. The filed number was $233.2 million for 86.8% of the company.
This is a bunch of like financial nerd stuff, but what we're about to learn is the way Jay-Z structured the deal. The way they structured this deal only benefited Jay-Z and not the artist. It only benefited Jay-Z. Not only did Jay-Z get paid, but Jay-Z also got a seat on like $1 billion company. But every other artist benefited zero, benefited nothing. Because essentially Jay-Z took the power away from him in a way he structured his deal.
223 million in cash, 10 million in stock. It implies the rough value for a Tidal was 269 million at the time, not 600 million. It quietly tells you that Tidal's value fell by more than half between 2017 and 2021, while the public story characterized it as a victory lap for Jay-Z. And one more thing that the filing says, and it kills a whole branch of the meme tree, the artists were not bought out. The press release says it plainly. All of Tidal's artist shareholders continue as co-owners, and the 10K carries them as minority interests, unnamed, aggregated, with exactly one artist who's named anywhere in the filings, Sean Carter, elected to Square's board in May of 2021. A seat on the board of a payments company worth tens of billions given to a man with no conventional payments background, no fintech background. So read that for what it is. Part of what the deal delivered was the Carter name. Everyone else is a line item called, quote, non-controlling interests sitting behind an option, Block's option, not theirs, to be bought out at fair value someday. So read that structure for what it is. They can't force a sale. They can't force a price, and they just have to wait. So now you go back to that stage. The word that day that they talked about was ownership. Artists finally owning the thing that they built instead of renting it from labels. So put the two documents side by side, and what they announced in 2015 and what the filing says they got. 16 owners became one board member and 15 line items. I'm not going to tell you what anyone intended, but I am going to tell you that the ownership that they announced that day and the ownership the SEC filing describes are not the same kind of ownership.
How many more times do Jay-Z got to do something like this before we say, yeah, let's stop trusting Jay-Z, bruh? Let's stop putting Jay-Z as the leader of whatever cultural revolution we want to start. Okay, see, it was a good idea. A streaming platform for artists, by artists. For the culture, by the culture. But you put Jay-Z at the front, at the mantle of any cultural movement, he's gonna find a way to sell it out to benefit himself. Straight up. Colin Kaepernick had the boycott solid and handled. Jay-Z stepped in, sold it out for himself. As simple as that, bruh. Y'all can't trust Jay-Z. Now, and the shameful part about this too, bruh, Drake got like a $25 million deal with Apple Music for one album, just one album. These artists turn down stupid money. They turn down stupid money. Money, to most people, is generational wealth. Nicki Minaj could have gotten $20 million. J. Cole could have gotten $20 million. If Frank Ocean got $20 million, if Chance the Rapper got $15 million, can you imagine how much money like Nicki Minaj and J. Cole and Rihanna and Kanye could have gotten? But they played the long game because they trusted Jay-Z, and Jay-Z betrayed their trust. This is some nasty stuff, bruh. Now, I know a lot of you guys will make excuses for Jay-Z because it's Jay-Z, but how can anybody support this?
The revolution was real on the stage. It just wasn't in the actual paperwork that came later when the deal was done. And what has fair value done since? Block's own filings answer that too. In late 2023, Block wrote down $132.3 million of Tidal goodwill, In late 24, another 73.5 million was written down. That's roughly 206 million in value impaired, according to the company's own accounts, in 2 years. So the remaining artist stakes are minority positions without exit rights in an asset that their majority owner has been writing down. Now, the claim from my comments, quote, the artist equity was recoupable. Jay-Z could claw it back. It was really an advance against their catalogs, end quote. I went looking for the source of that quote, and there is none that I could find anyway. No filing, no reporting. Nothing credible describes owner equity as recoupable. And the SEC accounting treats the stakes as real equity, which cuts directly against it. But here's the interesting part. The myth has a real ancestor. There was a documented recoupable advance in the Tidal story. It was Prince's catalog deal, a distribution agreement that ran until the advance recouped. It was a standard structure negotiated by Prince himself, who chose Tidal loudly and publicly while he was still alive. After his death, his estate and Tidal ended up in federal court, and the estate's lawyers wrote a sentence that you rarely see in a filing. They alleged that the equity term sheet Tidal produced was, quote, fabricated and backdated to appear authentic. Tidal denied it. The case settled in 2018, approved by the probate court, and the fabrication claim was never proven or disproven. So I'm not going to tell you who was right. I'm telling you that there was one documented recoupable advance belonging to the Prince's deal. And a never adjudicated fight over Prince's equity is how, quote, recoupable leaked into the folklore about everyone else's. And notice who was not on the stage at all: Drake, the defining artist of the streaming decade, biggest artist at the time. And by reports, he was supposed to be up there with them on that stage with the other Tidal artists. He wasn't not. And a few months later, he went the other way entirely, an exclusive deal with Apple Music put together by an executive named Larry Jackson.
I'm old enough to remember when y'all called Drake a sellout. When people was disparaging Drake for choosing himself over the quote-unquote culture. Because if Drake would have signed up with Tidal, if Drake would have gave Tidal exclusives for albums like Nothing Was the Same, for views, bruh, Tidal's evaluation would have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8x. And people thought, right, that Drake left a lot of money on the table because of his value. If he would have brought that and took equity, he would have been up. But here's the thing, right? Nobody has gotten paid yet. Like a dime, a dollar, right? Not a freaking dime, right? And for the people who gave exclusives, Tidal is now saying, hey, you didn't sign the contract. You don't, bro, these folks is nasty, bro. And Kanye West even walked away from Tidal because Tidal owed him $3 million and they didn't pay it. Y'all let me know in the comment section what y'all think about this, bro. Yo, Jay-Z should be embarrassed, man. If you're still watching this video and you want to watch another good video, click on this video right here somewhere on my screen. Here, or here somewhere on my screen to find out why exactly YG may be getting arrested any day now after this new footage. I'm going to see you guys in this YG video right here somewhere on my screen. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.